Eros, the mischievous and playful god, who with his arrows made everyone fall in love, never thought that he would fall into his trap. The beauty of Psyche, a mortal princess, captivated him in a way that no one else had ever done, igniting in his heart a flame that even he could not extinguish. In the blessed lands of Greece lived a king and his wife, blessed with 3 beautiful daughters. The 2 eldest attracted suitors from all over Greece, but the youngest, Psyche, eclipsed them all with her unearthly beauty. People from surrounding kingdoms used to take more distant routes to have the joy of beholding Psyche. This caused the envy of her sisters. Psyche began to receive worship as if she were a true goddess, and the tributes that used to go to Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty, now went to her. Aphrodite, furious that her temple was empty while the people followed Psyche, called her son Eros, the god of love. "Dear son, this mortal who thinks she is equal to the gods must be punished. Use your arrows to make her fall in love with a horrible creature," said the goddess angrily. At nightfall, Eros crept into the royal palace and made his way to Psyche's room. She was sleeping peacefully in her bed. Moved by curiosity, Eros approached to see if she was as beautiful as they said. When he saw her, he was amazed. "No wonder my mother is jealous," he thought. "Psyche is more beautiful than any nymph or goddess." Suddenly, Psyche moved in his dream, surprising Eros, who was wounded by his arrow. Instantly, the god fell in love with her. Unable to continue his mission to harm her, Eros let Psyche go on with her life without her suspecting anything. However, something curious began to happen. Although everyone admired her for her beauty, Psyche remained without suitors, unlike her sisters, who were already married. "Psyche has always been the most admired, but she is still single, while we are married to nobles," commented one of her sisters. The king was very worried about his daughter. He did not understand why no man wanted to marry her, not knowing that Eros, in love with Psyche, refused to let others fall in love with her. Desperate, the king went to the oracle at Delphi in search of answers. There, through Epiphanes, the god Apollo spoke. "Your daughter will marry an evil winged creature who enjoys hurting mortals and gods. She will be abandoned at the edge of the abyss in her wedding dress, where she will meet this terrible creature who will cause her death." The king left the temple in tears, unable to accept the idea of losing his favorite daughter. But Psyche's jealous sisters insisted that he must follow the oracle's instructions. In grief, the king revealed to his daughter her sad fate. And so, the princess was led into the abyss by a wedding procession that looked more like a funeral procession. Psyche, hearing the cries of her parents, could not contain herself. Psyche stood at the edge of an abyss, waiting for her dreaded husband. Suddenly, a gentle breeze began to lift her into the sky. This wind was the god Zephyrus, also known as the west wind. Psyche felt herself floating in the air. After becoming carried by Zephyrus, Psyche awoke in a dreamlike place. Flowers covered everything, and a pleasant scent filled the air. A magnificent white marble palace stood out in the landscape. In awe, Psyche climbed the stairs to the entrance of the palace, impressed by the richness around her. Everything was incredibly luxurious, adorned with gold and silver. As she entered, she heard a voice say, "My lady, all this is yours, and we are here to serve you in whatever you need." No one was visible, but Psyche noticed they were invisible servants. Already in her room, Psyche, distressed, awaited her fate. The cloak of Nyx, the goddess of the night, had already completely covered the skies. The room was in complete darkness, and it was impossible to see any figure when Psyche felt something had entered through the window. The young woman sensed the presence of her new husband and could feel his breath on her neck. She was tense and had no idea what was going to happen. Contrary to her expectations, she had a night of sublime pleasure, and her new husband treated her with great love and affection. Upon awakening, Psyche discovered that her husband had already left, and due to the darkness of the previous night, she had not been able to see her new companion. She spent the day exploring her new home, wondering when she would see him again. When evening came, Psyche was already anxiously waiting for her husband. Many nights passed in which they met and loved each other. One night, Psyche, unable to contain her curiosity, asked him why he always hid in the shadows. He asked her not to try to see him and to respect his secret. Eventually, although she was happy, Psyche missed her family so much. She begged her husband to let her visit them, and he, wanting to see her happy, agreed. Eros believed that if she returned after releasing her, it would be the ultimate sign that she truly loved him. Psyche's relatives were surprised to see her, as they thought they would never see her again. "My dear daughter, I thought I would never see you again," said her father with tears in his eyes. Psyche returned with great joy, adorned with the most beautiful jewels, looking like the richest of queens. Her sisters, filled with envy, did not believe the stories Psyche told as she distributed precious gifts to her family. Zephyrus, the west wind, took Psyche and her sisters to the heavenly palace. When they arrived, they realized that everything Psyche had said was true, which only increased their envy. The sisters decided to ruin Psyche's happiness. "Remember what the oracle said. You married a monster, and he will become your undoing. Do this. When he is asleep, take a knife, turn on a light, and after seeing him, cut his throat." Her sisters departed, leaving Psyche full of doubts. That night, when her husband was already asleep, she took a knife and lit a lamp. As she approached, she saw that he was not a monster, but an incredibly beautiful young man, a god. However, a drop of hot oil fell from the lamp and burned her husband, waking him startled to see Psyche with a knife in her hand. Eros flew out of the window. Psyche jumped after him, but could not catch him and fell to the ground. Although his injuries were not serious, his heart was shattered. Upon learning that Psyche had returned, her sisters ran to the cliff, hoping the west wind would help them, but Zephyrus did not hold them, and they fell down the cliff. Psyche had lost the love of her life, and with him, her happiness. To distract herself from her sad thoughts, she began to help with the chores at the temple of the goddess Demeter. She devoted herself with great care to all the chores, but nothing could take her mind off her true love. The goddess Demeter, moved by her suffering, decided to help her. She advised her to go to the temple of Aphrodite and offer her tea in a submissive manner. Thus she could calm her anger and perhaps regain the love of Eros. How could she not follow the advice of such a wise and kind goddess? So she went to the temple of Aphrodite, not knowing how she would be received. "I humbly come before the goddess of love, seeking her forgiveness," said Psyche. "Do you think I will forgive you easily after hurting my son? To purge your sins will be very painful, and you will have to do the hardest jobs, which could cost you your life," said the goddess, very annoyed. She was willing to do anything for a chance to get Aphrodite's forgiveness. The goddess, in her anger, decided to impose very difficult tasks on her. The first task was to go to the barn and separate different types of seeds that were completely mixed up, something so complicated that even Hercules would have had trouble. Eros, the god of love, who was secretly observing, got the ants to help her. Thanks to them, Psyche finished the job in record time. Aphrodite was angry that she had done it so quickly. "I don't know how you managed it so easily, but the next job won't be so easy. You must bring me a good handful of golden wool from dangerous sheep." These sheep were not common. Besides having golden wool, they were also carnivorous and dangerous to humans. She feared being devoured, but a voice from the waters told her, "Follow the way of the sheep, and you will find the solution." The sheep passed through a narrow path full of thorny plants, and some of their wool got caught in the thorns. Psyche picked up the golden wool from the thorns and brought it to the goddess. "Very well, but this is not over." Aphrodite then demanded that she bring her a pitcher of water from the river Styx, which rose on a mountaintop. This task seemed impossible, but Zeus sent his eagle to fetch the water and deliver it to her. Thus, he managed to complete another task. You have done well in accomplishing your tasks, earning the favor of the gods. But your next challenge will come at a cost that only you can afford. My beauty has been affected by the trouble you have caused me, so I need you to go to the realm of Hades and ask Queen Persephone to fill this box with her beauty to restore mine. Thus I will grant you my forgiveness, and you can be reunited with my son." Psyche now knew she was in big trouble, as she had no idea how to enter the underworld without taking her own life. She was about to jump from a tower when she heard a voice like a whisper. "There is another way to find the way and overcome the obstacles, like the ferryman and Cerberus, the three-headed dog. But remember, on your way back, do not open the box under any circumstances." Following the directions of the mysterious voice, she found a cave that led her to the underworld. After a long descent, she reached the banks of the river Acheron, where she met Charon, the ferryman who carried the souls to the other side. "I am here in the name of the goddess Aphrodite, and I need to see Queen Persephone." She handed 2 coins to Charon as payment, and so crossed the river to Hades' domain. Psyche appeared before the king and queen of the underworld, Hades and Persephone. "What is a mortal doing in our domain?" they asked. "I am here in the name of Aphrodite, asking you to fill this box with your beauty to restore her beauty," Psyche replied. Persephone took the box and handed it back, so much heavier now. Psyche set out on her way back to the surface. On her way, Psyche encountered Cerberus blocking her passage. Remembering the advice of a mysterious voice, she pulled out a loaf of barley and honey bread soaked in sleeping draught. She gave it to the dog, who soon fell asleep, allowing her to continue on her way. As the boatman carried her back, Psyche saw her reflection in the water and realized how tired she was. Nearing the surface and completing her mission, Psyche thought, "This box is full of beauty. If I take some, I will be able to present myself radiant before my love." As she opened the box, a black mist came out, and inhaling it, Psyche began to faint, feeling the life drain from her body. Eros, sensing something was wrong, came to her rescue. He found Psyche cold and on the verge of death, with Thanatos already at her side. "My beloved, do not leave me now," he exclaimed. Using his powers, Eros removed the deadly mist from Psyche's body and returned her to the box. Psyche awoke in his arms and said, "My love, I feel that now I can look into your eyes without fear of losing you." They kissed passionately, but Eros insisted that Psyche finish her task by handing the box to Aphrodite. He then flew to Mount Olympus and begged Zeus to intercede with Aphrodite. Eros took Psyche to Mount Olympus, where all the gods were waiting for her. From the hands of Zeus and with the blessing of Aphrodite, Psyche received nectar and ambrosia, which made her immortal. Psyche's path was difficult, but in the end, she achieved her goal. You are now immortal and free from the obstacles created by human ignorance. The bond you have with your husband will never be broken, and your love will last for all eternity. Thus, from the union of Eros and Psyche, the divinity of pleasure was born, and their love lasted forever. This video has been created for the Mythophiles and History page. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the fascinating story of Eros and Psyche. Hope to see you soon for the next mythological adventure.